Who is William Howard Taft? He was the 10th Supreme Court Chief Justice, and he was the only man to serve as both U.S. President and Supreme Court Chief Justice. He was the 27th President of the United States, and he served from 1909 to 1913. William Howard Taft was born on September 15, 1857 in Cincinnati, Ohio. His parents were Alphonso Taft and Louise Taft. Alphonso Taft served as a lawyer, Secretary of War, as well as an Attorney General in Ulysses S. Grant's cabinet. He had 5 siblings: Charles Phelps Taft, Henry Waters Taft, Horace Dutton Taft, and Peter Rawson Taft II. Taft attended Woodward High School for his primary education and participated in golf, tennis, and wrestling, and was a great student. After his primary education, he attended Yale College in New Haven, Connecticut. After college, Taft returned to Cincinnati to study law at the University of Cincinnati College of Law. Due to Alphonso's political connections, William Howard Taft became Assistant Prosecutor of Hamilton County, Ohio in 1881. A few years after, he steadily rose through the ranks and was appointed a judge of the Superior Court of Cincinnati in 1887. William strived to have a seat in the U.S. Supreme Court. President Benjamin Harrison made Taft the Solicitor General of the United States in 1890. He was 32 at the time, and he was the youngest ever Solicitor General. From 1892 to 1900, he served as a judge of the United States Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, including jurisdiction over Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, and Tennessee. While in that field, Taft also served as the first dean and a professor of constitutional law at the University of Cincinnati between 1896 and 1900. Taft ran against Democrat William Jennings Bryan in the election and won. Taft became the 27th President of the United States on March 1909. He served for 4 years as president, then re-ran for a second term, but lost to Woodrow Wilson. He stepped down from presidency on March 4, 1913. In 1921, President Warren G. Harding nominated Taft to the position of the Chief Justice of the United States. He proved to be highly successful in this position and was very respected. He served this role until 1930. William Howard Taft held the Chief of Justice position until he died on March 8, 1930, at age 72. He died of cardiovascular disease.
Today I'm going to be talking about the U.S. Supreme Court case, Dred Scott v. Sandford. This case involves Dred Scott and his family, as well as John F.A. Sandford. It was argued from February 10, 1856 to December 17th of the same year. The ruling was issued on March 6, 1857 by Chief Justice Roger Taney. In 1833, Dred Scott was bought as a slave by Dr. John Emerson, a surgeon in the U.S. Army. He later moved Scott to a base in Wisconsin Territory where slavery was banned due to the Missouri Compromise. In 1846, Scott sued in Missouri State Court for his freedom, arguing that since he had lived in a free state, he was a free man. In 1854, a federal court ruled against Scott and ruled that he was still a slave. Because of this, Scott appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. The Supreme Court argued that in Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution, federal courts may only hear cases brought by citizens of the U.S. The court ruled that because Scott was of African descent and had ancestors imported into the country and sold as slaves, Scott had no right to file a lawsuit in federal court because he was not a citizen. The court argued that although states were able to create their own citizenship qualifications, the Constitution gives Congress the authority to define U.S. citizenship. The court deemed that although Scott was free under state law, he didn't qualify as an American citizen because he was black. Scott was appealing a previous case in which the jury ruled that Scott couldn't sue in federal court because he had previously been deemed a slave. The Supreme Court ruled that Americans of African descent, either free or slave, weren't American citizens and couldn't sue in federal court. The court ruled that Scott was not free because he wasn't considered an actual person under the Constitution. In the opinion of Roger Taney, Scott was the property of his owner, and property could not be taken away from its owner without due process, which meant that the slave owners are covered under the Fifth Amendment. This decision sparked regional tensions between the North and South and continued to burn until exploding into the Civil War 4 years later. After the Civil War, a Reconstruction Congress passed, which later overturned the Dred Scott v. Sandford decision. Today, any person born or who is a naturalized citizen in the U.S. can bring forward a lawsuit in federal court.